Good morning, friends. This is Camille Polly, your host on Real Presence Live on Real Presence Radio, and I'm so excited to have you here with us today. We've had a wonderful show so far, and I want to tell you what a blessing it's been with you so far this morning. If you missed that in the last segment, you can go to healingtheculture.org, which is our website, and send us a message through the contact page, and we will send you free episodes of our Philo and Sophie program, which is a video program for young kids that teaches them those 4 levels of happiness and helps them move beyond those first 2 levels that are very self-centered into something much deeper and forms the building blocks for a pro-life mentality and a pro-life vision for their future. So I want to encourage you again on that, healingtheculture.org. Go to our contact page and just send us a message that you would like those free programs for kids, and you can start educating them right away. At this point, I want to introduce another guest. I have a very special man. He's very special to my family on our show today. His name is Mr. Kenneth Rolling, and Kenneth Rolling is the founder and headmaster of Oxrose Academy, which is a classical Catholic online school. And I want to welcome you. Good morning, Mr. Rolling.
Good morning, Mrs. Polly. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. I'm really excited about this segment of the show, and I have to have full disclosure with our listeners because my children actually go to Oxrose Academy, which is how I found out about you or learned more about you and really discovered that what you have created is an amazing educational model that I think sets the gold standard for educating kids K through 12 today. And I want our listeners to listen to this show because we're not just going to talk about what you do at Oxrose. We're going to talk about education itself and why we so badly need reform. And I'm hoping that this conversation gives people not just a lot of excitement, but some concrete things that they can actually do to help improve the education in our system, but also in their own families today. Because you are an online school, you're a school that's accessible to anybody, basically. Is that right?
That is correct, yes. We have students and faculty from across the United States and occasionally abroad as well. So it can go anywhere is one of its merits.
Can go anywhere. Now, our listening audience will forgive me because I know you as Mr. Rolling. We use formalities in this school, and so so if you hear us calling each other Mrs. Polly and Mr. Rolling, that would be why. But Kenneth Rolling, again, the founder and headmaster of Oxrose Academy. I want to start by just asking, because everybody's probably wondering, what does the name Oxrose come from? Is that a Catholic word? What is that?
So it's a combination of our 2 patrons, or our patron and our patroness. When we first founded the school, we took Rose Venerini, the great educator, as our patroness. And as we developed the curriculum, we leaned heavily into St. Thomas and we're drawing upon him. And he's probably the most foundational thinker to the curriculum and the mindset that we bring into education. And so we a few years ago, as the school was growing and developing, went through a process of changing the name to Oxrose. And so it's for St. Thomas the Dumb Ox and Rose Venerini. And we love the connotations of old English universities and the sound of the thing. And so that's where the name came from.
I love that. And your website is oxroseacademy.com. And so that's a really easy website to remember. Ox like the dumb ox, Rose like St. Rose Venerini. What was her last name?
St. Venerini.
Venerini. So oxroseacademy.com. Why did you start this school? Can you tell our listening audience in just a couple sentences, what's the main reason why you started this school?
Putting aside the kind of the practical or more personal elements that led us to it as a good choice for our lives, the educational motivation was, I think, that sense that many of us have had that as we were looking at the educational options available to us, we kept coming into this sense of there being a disconnect between the elements of the curriculum or the elements of the educational idea and Catholicity and the fundamental commitments and ideals that Catholicity implied or demanded. And so we started to write things and to develop things, and and just kind of, and it grew very organically, one piece at a time over the years, to be what it is today. But that was the fundamental desire. We wanted to find an expression of everything from mathematics to art to to the literature that we would choose that got the foundational principles right, and and then moved from there into the details.
Okay, so this is going to lead into a segment, a portion of this conversation that I really want to have right now, which is that you saw something wrong with modern education that caused you want to move in this direction. What do you think? I mean, we can talk until we're blue in the face. Everybody has lots and lots of great ideas about what's wrong with modern education, but what do you think is the primary problem with the way we educate young people today?
I think I would say that if we look at the fundamental components of education as a process, it involves two main things. One is the formation of the student, right? The attempt to help craft or help the student craft himself into being the kind of person that he ought to be.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is the truths that are conveyed, right? So what it is that we're teaching them. So the content and the formation.
So we're seeing education today mostly as I'm going to fill you with a bunch of stuff so that when you graduate you can get a good job and make a lot of money. But we're not seeing education as forming the person that you are so that you can fulfill your purpose.
Well, I think I would disagree and say that though it's not explicit, what modern education does do is convey a particular formation.
But
right?
the wrong kind.
It's neglected somewhat, but yes. So it's forming the student with this mindset that they are a worker and an earner, that they are for a job, and that they are that is their purpose, is to excel in these various ways, and so that they can get into a good school, so that they can then get a good job, and that they can then make lots of money. And
right. And the consequences of go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and so that's a sometimes again it's because of not thinking about it in an explicit way, but the formation is really there. We're teaching kids an idea of what they ought to be, and they're living that out. And I think we see the fruits of that in kind of a cynicism and in a disquiet about many things, and in an absence of moral formation and skepticism about all sorts of things.
I agree with you. I was
there.
Yes, I was on a high school campus once about 10 years ago, and I was trying to get our curriculum, our pro-life curriculum, into that campus. It was a religious school, and sadly, even at that religious bricks-and-mortar school, the teacher was telling me, one of the teachers I interviewed was telling me that the vast majority of the students walking on the campus that day were what he thought, in his own words, clinically depressed. Because because in his view, it was because the world they were living in was teaching them all this stuff that was beneath them, and that was getting their minds thinking only in terms of what was concrete and material, and driving them towards a life that was independent and powerful, and seeking these things that weren't really worthy of them. And the school felt helpless to do anything about it, which broke my heart that the school had this sense of helplessness. But I think that's true on most school campuses today. The vast majority of them, you've got kids who are literally clinically depressed because they don't know who they are, they don't know where they're going, they know they're being taught all these facts, but they don't really know why, and it's not satisfying for them. Mr. Rolling, if you've just joined us, this is Mr. Kenneth Rolling, who is the founder and headmaster of Oxrose Academy, a classical Catholic online school for kindergarten all the way through high school. It's a phenomenal program. If parents want to get a real education for their children, an education like what you offer at Oxrose, which we'll talk about in a minute, what do you think are the biggest challenges that those parents face in your experience?
I think for some it's an overcoming of a certain mindset. Kind of going back to what we were just speaking of, there's a lot of implicit drivers in our culture and in the way we think about education and all of these sorts of things that can be real hang-ups for many of us. Well, what about a job? Our child, they do need to eat at some point, and if I take this alternative route, what will that mean for their ability to get into school and their ability to get jobs and these sorts of things. So mindset, just hang-ups about some of those concerns is a big hurdle for many of us. The other one, I think, is just wading through the many resources and many alternatives that are available, and in order to understand what they're getting and choose something that works well for them. So I think those are the biggest things that just the learning curve is steep sometimes there, and you have to get through a lot of information quickly in order to make those choices.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. My daughters are enrolled. Elizabeth is in the 8th grade, or 7th grade? 7th grade. And Juliet is enrolled full-time in your 9th grade program. And they joined just this year. And so they were at a bit of a disadvantage when they joined. Your school is a classical Catholic education. It is rigorous. The teaching is excellent. There are high expectations of the students. It's a lot of work, I won't lie. It's a lot of work for the students, but it challenges them in ways that turn their hearts on fire. I want to talk about that fire that you light on them in a minute, but when you have older students who walk through your virtual doors for the first time, like my girls, what do you see are the biggest obstacles for their success? In other words, what do they have to unlearn from either the public schools they went to or, the traditional schools they went to, or even their home schools that they were enrolled in?
Some of the things that we have to work with them on are not allowing themselves to bring kind of a learn it, forget it mentality into classes. That that there's we want to make everything that we require of them meaningful. That's our obligation to the student, is to make sure that there's no fluff, that there's no extra. But in the student, then, we want a concomitant attitude that says, all right, if they're giving it to me, it's important, and I really have to learn it. It's not just a thing that I can get through or get done and then move on. And so that's a very real challenge, and that's a general challenge for all students, but that's something that I hope we do better in terms of making sure that we're lean and very particular in what we're requiring them to learn. Another thing that we come across is just there's an attitude that students don't think they can handle texts and ideas and other things that are as challenging as what we want to give them. They sometimes will be dismissive and say, that's just not a thing I can deal with or tackle. And I think for most of them, for many of us, they think that they can do less than they really can. And so diving in and tackling it is the key.
Yes, I have some personal experience with that because one of my daughters, when she found out she was going to have oral exams, which we'd done oral exams before, we'd homeschooled, but it was mom and dad sitting on the couch, just chit-chatting. Now she was going to be forced to, be online with a teacher talking about her thoughts, and you have these feelings of, I'm inadequate, everything I say is going to be stupid, I can't do this, I don't know anything compared to these other students, the spotlight is on me, and she really felt inadequate. But when she did it, and then she hung up, ended the call, she just beamed, like, I do have something to say, and I did remember things, and I actually didn't just spit out facts, but thought about it. I was deeply challenged to think about it. And those kinds of experiences, I think, that with a school like yours that pull students out of what they normally think they can do because they haven't been challenged in deeper ways like that, I think is one of the most valuable things. Your school is a classical school. It offers a classical education. Can you explain to our listening audience, what does that mean? What is a classical education compared to a not classical education?
So this kind of goes back to a critique of modern education. Classical right now is is a very broad term that can encompass quite a few different ideas about methodology or other things. But what almost all of those have in common is the content has to be open to the perennial philosophical ideas that really formed the West. Things like the universe is real, so ontological realism. It's really there, and it's really magnificent, and it's really full of goodness, and it's intended for us, right? So it's an openness and to the fullness of a theological perspective on reality, right? So that when I encounter a bug, I know it's a bug, but I can reason from that to the causal arguments of St. Thomas, and I can encompass within my appreciation of it the artistic expressions of what a bug is and the ways in which our tradition has captured that. And so it's that sense that any given thing is not just a datum, is not just a set of facts to memorize, but it is one more piece in this astounding ontological mystery that is the universe. And so it's always eschatological. It's always looking to the end, and aware of that, even as you're dealing with some detail. So that is a fundamental part of what I see that to mean. Secondly, it's historically grounded, and this is kind of a piece of that. But we cannot understand what we are as humans and what we are as members of the Roman Church and what we are as Western civilized people without being deep in history. And so everything has to be given with its story, with the fullness of the context, with all of the details that you can. And so that you have a balanced way of understanding, so that you can see people as humans in history and recognize their villainy and their holiness.
Yes,
and
what I
all of that sophistication of vision. So historically grounded, ontologically or philosophically rich and open to theology. And then the last part is kind of getting into the details of what classical education includes. So we have the inclusion of a liberal arts component in one of our sequence, and the inclusion of a great book sequence, which isn't as classical. That is more of a modern add-on, but I think it's a really rich one to that. And so those would be the things, is the presence of those three.
And what I love so much about what Oxrose does is you integrate everything. You integrate all of this into each of the classes. So for example, Juliet's a full-time student. She's got 8 classes. She's taking philosophy and theology. She's taking, history and physics and algebra and great books and spiritual formation. And throughout all of these, they're learning the same theme. So she may be learning the Old Testament, but it's woven through all of these classes. Or she may be learning about a particular figure in history, but it's woven through all of these classes. And so there's this integration in the education, or a particular theme in our Catholic faith or a theme in history. And it's beautiful because it's not chaotic. It brings everything together so the student sees how this figure or how this concept or how this belief that we share as Catholics affects us historically and affects us theologically, and how we can use this in philosophy and how we can read this in literature. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. I want you to walk us through a little bit more practically. For our listening audience, if you just joined us, this is Camille Pauly on Real Presence Live, and I'm interviewing Mr. Kenneth Rolling, who is the founder and headmaster of Oxrose Academy, a classical online school. And we're blown right through the break. I hope you don't mind, Mr. Rolling, I'm not going to give you a break. I'm having such a fun time talking to you that I decided to skip the break. I want people to kind of know exactly what's happening in this school. It's K through 12, is that right?
Sure.
And
we have K through 6 is our Scola Rosa program, which is not for the kids to be taking live online. That's a curricular program to be taught by parents at home. We didn't want to bring kids that young online.
Right, that's a good idea. Really. Yeah. So these kids you can enroll in the class and you get your curriculum online.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do they buy books or is everything online?
It's the spine of the thing is a large online suite that it's a family enrollment, and so you gain access to the whole curriculum, and there's a lot of integration so that the family can operate as a learning unit together.
And everything's laid out online. You don't have to think anything up. It's all there for you.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Do you do the grading, or does the parent grade? Or are there no grades?
Parent grading. for that, to the limited extent that there are. So that it's the parent is the only one who interacts with the online
Got it. But
content
the
for those grades.
7th through 12th grade, that's where you call Oxrose. It's called Oxrose Academy, and that is online, but it can also be offline as self-paced classes, right? You can do it live or offline.
Correct, yes. So we, not for all classes, but for the majority of them, there are self-paced, asynchronous suites that are available for students to make use of the courses that way as well.
So walk us through, what does day-to-day look like in the school? Exactly, if somebody is enrolled, 7th through 12th grade, they want to do the online program, they're enrolled full-time, what does it look like? What's the student doing? Is she online all day, every day?
So the basic way in which we tried to figure out the practical questions is, to speak to that point, we don't like them being online. We're an online school that doesn't like that we're online. And so our goal was to keep screen time as limited as we can, and then simultaneously to make any online time as interactive. We want them talking to a person if they're going to be online, if we can help it. And so what the kids' day looks like is that the content for their learning is housed in an online course suite. And so Monday morning, they would log in to that suite and look up the week that we're in currently. And it's laid out as a 5-day interactive agenda. And so the students go to day one and see what the assignment is, and then it might be a reading assignment or a video lecture that might be present. We use what in the lingo is called a flipped model. So we try to do the lectures as homework, and the homework, again, making the online time interactive. We do the homework in class together is the idea.
Right.
And so the students would make their way through the week for that class, just completing the tasks that are listed on each day. And one of those would be, or two, depending on the class, attendance at that live class component. And then at the end of the week, the student would upload their work through a portal that's built into those course suites.
It's great.
And then
by
throughout
the
the week, to be graded by the teacher, yes, ma'am. And then throughout the week, the other component is that we have what are called tutor times, and these are just open office hour times for the teachers, again, to be available for within a video conference room. And the students just stop in and get help with anything that they might need throughout the week. So we try
times
to.
are awesome because your tutors are it's very organized. It's very scheduled. My daughter can go online during that hour. The math teacher has a specific hour. She goes online. She waits her turn. She could be working on other homework as she's doing it, and then she's called on. She asks her question and works through the problem. They can talk about anything that they need to, and it's just been really, really helpful. But we only have a few minutes left. I want to talk a little bit more about the other stuff that makes Oxrose Academy different from other online schools. Another of the many wonderful things we love about Oxrose is that you try to make this a community. It's online. These kids don't get to see each other in a building all day long and play outside in the field during break. So you try to build a community. You have things like the league, house battles, spirit week, poem of the week. You even have a rendezvous in the summer. Can you explain what these things are in just a few minutes that brings everybody together as a community? Sure.
We noted, that this was one of the biggest challenges of being an online school, is that we didn't have as much community or opportunity for that. And in order to overcome that, we sort of started this student life initiative. And as you mentioned, we have the League of Noble Oxrosians, and the kids can complete a challenge, which is to take our school pledge at the beginning of the year. And then if they do so, they are sorted into one of our houses. And then they compete as a house member throughout the year to do spiritual or moral challenges or service challenges or academic challenges to earn points towards this contest to claim the house cup for the year.
Yep. And my
And
daughters
and it,
love that league. They, and they've learned
it
how to
is
balance it. They keep the schoolwork up, and when they have free time, they
nice.
do league stuff, and they don't always get involved in the league stuff because, time, and they put academics first, but they have loved the
Right.
community of it. They've loved the fun of it. You get online sometimes with them and have everybody wear goofy hats so that it kind of breaks down the boundaries,
Yeah.
and even cheer each other and toast each other with a drink, when somebody gets an answer correct. And it just builds this spirit in this community, which we really love.
It's been great. And you mentioned the rendezvous, but we've done that. We're on our 5th year, and it's just an opportunity to get everyone together. So we gather at a Boy Scout camp in Kansas or Missouri, and it's a big family camp week, and we do English country dancing and put on some Shakespeare and lots of poetry and lots of singing
And
and all
then
of the
kids
things
get
we
to
can't
meet
do.
each other. Yep.
They do,
Online.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
they
we've had
get to
our
meet their
first
teachers.
our first few groups of kids come in who had already known each other well because of summer camps. So that it's been that part particularly, but the whole program has really changed
Phenomenal.
the entire timbre of the school. The kids know each other and really love each other. And
I
it's
just
great.
love it. We've got about 30 seconds left, and I want you to tell our listening audience what they can do to help. How can they adopt a child or a tutor to pray for? Do you offer scholarships we can contribute to? What can we do to help?
The biggest thing for us is just spreading the word, to put the word out there. If you like what you see at the school, asking around for opportunities to tell others or to talk to people at a parish or anything like that is very, very helpful.
Yes, and your website
we don't currently have.
Go ahead.
Okay. We don't currently have a scholarship program, but we are hoping to get one in the works sometime.
Okay. Your website is very well organized and very helpful. If people go to oxroseacademy.com, oxroseacademy.com, you can find out a lot more about the school and spread the word about this school. Mr. Kenneth Rolling, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you so much, Miss Polly. It was my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so find out more about Oxrose Academy by going to oxroseacademy.com and finding out how you can either share this information with a young person in your life or a family with a student who might be looking for an alternative education that gives them a much deeper grounding in their faith, in philosophy, in formation, and in learning how not just to go out and get a salary and a good job, but actually to fulfill their mission that Christ put in them to be good Christians and stewards of everything, of all their gifts and talents. oxroseacademy.com. This is Camille Polly with Real Presence Live. I'm so glad you're joining us, and we will be returning to you again right after the break.